Hi, Scorpio. It's Susan. Happy New Year. I'm here to give you an overview of 2024. Really excited to share with you some of the things that you're going to grow into this year. And there's some really interesting developments in your house of relationship and creativity and work. There's a lot of personal growth here for you, Scorpio, a lot of deep, intimate growth, which is really up your alley. You're all about getting deep. And so that's going to obviously be like fertile ground that you can take out into the wilds, out into the world. And the deeper you are, the better you can plant your roots to grow tall in the world outside. So let's start with Pluto, which has on the 21st of January moved into your fourth house. So it's preceded by the sun. And so about 11 hours later, then Pluto moves into your fourth house. I find that really significant because there's a big um, kind of ta-da kind of energy to that with the Sun-Pluto conjunction. It's already only an annual conjunction. This is the very first time that the Sun and Pluto are conjoining in your fourth house in the sign of Aquarius. And so we do have this really important energy, a very fresh new start for the next 2 decades of your life in the foundation of your life. It's about where you live. It's about your family. It's about your history, your lineage. It's about your psychological growth and whatever makes you feel secure. And for Scorpio, that's always a very important question. Scorpio is one of those signs that really needs to grow into a feeling of security. So Pluto will go up to the second degree, and then it backtracks back into your third house in Capricorn just one last time. And so on the 2nd of May, it retrogrades. On the 2nd of September, it moves back into your third house. And so if you have planets or placements in the first couple of degrees of Scorpio, or even up to about, say, 3 degrees of Scorpio, you'll really feel this powerfully because that's going to be squaring you. So Pluto squaring any of those points will really transform things for you. Because Pluto is in an angular house, so the first, fourth, seventh, and 10th are angular houses, and they're very prominent. It has a very strong impact on your life. It's one of the sort of pillars, let's say, of your life. It's where you live. It's like the foundation of your whole life. And so it will shake your foundations, that's for sure. So it's time for you to really dig deep. You, especially in 2024, are still moving back and forth between that energy of Capricorn and the third house, and then the Aquarius fourth house. So there are some things that you'll be tying up towards the end of the year. And that's something that you can grow into in the period from September until about the 24th of November, when Pluto finally moves back into your fourth house permanently. So that's kind of around your birthday. So that'll be a very interesting birthday, I'd say, for Scorpio suns at least. This is, by the way, for a sun, moon, and rising sign. Please read the description below the video for lots of details. And I won't give too many more details on these big slow-moving planets because I have videos that I'm linking in the description below. I've done a really thorough, deep dive into all of this meaning, and you'll get much better information out of those videos. This is just to give you the kind of lay of the land for 2024. Another thing that's really significant for you is the Chiron conjoining Rahu in your sixth house of everyday work. So because you are ruled by Mars and your sixth house is also ruled by Mars, there's quite a strong affinity to work. Scorpio risings love work, love being busy, love the intensity of everyday life, and even, dare I say, conflict, because the sixth house is also about conflicts and obligations and overcoming obstacles and so on. It's part of where you get your courage, Scorpio. It's that sixth house Mars ruled Aries. And that house has a ton of energy in it this year, right off the bat, but especially in February and especially going forward into April. So we'll have a look at that. In February, the middle of the month, Chiron starts to conjoin the North Node. And exactly on the 19th of February, it's exact at 16 degrees and 45 minutes. Now, this is in your health axis. This is in your work and everyday habits, but also your health. Chiron also represents health. And it's in that axis between mental and spiritual and physical health. So do be careful with Chiron in the sixth. There can be something you're realizing about your health. And Chiron in the sixth can also show you, again, where you might be finding it difficult to set aside work, where it might be difficult for you to stop working or to feel your worth without working. Do you put your sense of self-esteem in terms of what work you do, for example? Be careful of that, because the Chiron North Node will show that to you. Any issues of inadequacy or feeling of lacking self-esteem might also translate into not taking good care of yourself physically, and that's not helpful either, Scorpio. So you want to be careful of that. So difficult really without your natal chart to see how this will affect you, but let's just say that the sixth house is going to be very important for you this year. So health and work issues are really, really prominent. So dig into your hidden motivations, into your psyche, dig into your sense of what makes you feel insecure or not, or what makes you, what are you afraid of? Maybe that's especially with that Pluto in the fourth house. When Chiron and the North Node meet up, it's an opportunity to see, well, maybe my everyday life is a reflection of what I'm afraid of, or it's a reflection of me needing to feel like I have to get on top of all these things because of. And so what's the because of? Because of what? Try and figure that out, Scorpio, because it's going to affect you long term. Chiron is still there until 2026. The North Node leaves that sixth house in January 2025. So basically, it's all of 2024 that this is very, very strongly in terms of your awareness of these issues. It's very strongly prominent. In March, we have a penumbral lunar eclipse in Libra in your 12th house. That's about on the 25th of March. That's about your understanding from an unconscious place, or that can be things that you might be realizing around issues that are more hidden from you. They're not necessarily obvious. It's either out of sight, out of mind, or it's in your unconscious, or it's literally physically out of sight. It's something that's far away. Anyway, the 12th house can also be about confinement or about research, confinement in the sense of voluntary, going off on a retreat, for example, or going off on a healing adventure, or it can be not so voluntary, meaning that there's an illness again. So we're looking at this house of healing, this axis of taking care of things that are not working so well. Now, that's also where we find the self-undoing. Where the things that you do in maybe a self-indulgent way can actually provoke issues. And so that would be something that you are ready to give up, because the South Node going through that 12th house can really let that go. It can be fantastic in terms of recognizing those patterns are really not supporting you. It's time to really let it go. So a brilliant opportunity there for Scorpio. On the 8th of April, we have a fantastic total solar eclipse at 19 degrees of Aries, your sixth house, and that's conjunct exactly Chiron. So this little tail of Chiron and the North Node is a substantial one between January and April. And that degree point between 15 and 19 degrees of Aries, and you could give 2 or 3 degrees on either side of that to see if you have planets or placements that are affected there. That's really in play here. You have a stellium in the sixth house at the time of this eclipse, and that's extremely powerful. So there's a lot of energy there in your everyday work house, in the health house. So I want you to, again and again in 2024, keep thinking in terms of what are my everyday habits, and are they supporting my health? What is my everyday work commitment? Is it supporting my health? What do I feel is a burden or an obligation? Is that affecting my health? So keep this in mind. And I don't want to harp on this. It's just that that's part of what the chart is telling us here. And I also would have to say that I can't really be sure unless I see your natal chart. So of course this is just a general reading, and it's not to say that you're all going to become ill. It's to say that this is a tendency that is obvious in the chart. So whatever it is, there's something new coming into your everyday life because you're realizing something about the way that you're operating, and you're going to change that. We also in Aries have a Mercury retrograde going through that sixth house. So this could be the opportunity to revise that, and you kind of have a sense of, oh yeah, this would work better, wouldn't it, if I did this or that. And so that Mercury retrograde is from the 1st until the 25th. And then we also have on the 21st, a really fantastic, 21st of April, we have a really fantastic conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus that's in your 7th house at 2150 of Taurus. So if you have any planets or points at either, let's say, 18, 19 degrees up until 24, 25 degrees of Scorpio, or if you have them in the angles, Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo, for example, this will really be impactful for you. So this is in your house of relationship, new insights, potential new encounters in relationship. That is something that is difficult to predict again, and I really would need to see your chart to see how any of that would pan out. It depends on so many other factors, including what Mars and Venus are like in your chart, your age, what's ongoing in your life at this moment. So very difficult to predict. And it's anyway difficult to predict with Uranus and with the nodal axis, because it's always about new and sudden and shocking developments. So suffice it to say that that could be a new relationship, new business partnership. It could be a new way of showing up in relationship. It could be a sudden awareness of what's going on in a relationship, for good or bad. Jupiter going through the 7th house, particularly with Uranus going through the 7th house, can really rattle the cages of your relationships, especially the intimate ones. It can really show you where things need to be shaped up or improved. If you get through all of this in the same relationship, then probably you have a very solid one. But relationships that don't survive this are better left behind. So it's a good idea. And I think that with the Pluto in the 4th house squaring your house of relationship, you might find that there's certain relationships that just end, and it's just time, because you're changing, you need to change, and the relationships need to grow along with you. Not to say that that wouldn't be difficult, but don't do anything that would keep you stuck in a pattern. That can be a tendency with Scorpio rising to hold a grudge, hang on too long, be resentful, move on, just move on. Don't hang on. Life is too short, Scorpio. And so also then in May, we have this wonderful ingress of Jupiter into Gemini in your 8th house. That can actually be very supportive for relationships, can be very interesting in terms of receiving support from other people. That can be financial support. It can be support in terms of moral support, in terms of how people give you advice or give you just help, or a sense of emotional or psychological support. And that, if you are struggling at all, would be really, really welcome, be very, very helpful for you. Jupiter in the 8th house will bring fantastic people into your life to be able to counsel you, especially with Pluto in the 4th. There can be this feeling of being depressed. It can lead to a feeling of being really down on yourself, feeling difficulty in life. Pluto is your modern ruler. I tend to go with the traditional rulers, but it's worth noting that Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. And so it can pull you into a similar tendency of, potentially going down into a deeper, darker place. So that again depends on your natal chart. But with Jupiter going into your 8th house in Gemini, it brings you immense support in terms of feeling better, feeling more optimistic. That's trining the 4th house, it's trining the 12th house. Jupiter, even in the 7th house, can bring you fantastic counselors, advisors, and even legal support for anything that might require that. So use all of these outer resources. Don't think that you need to muddle through on your own. Yeah, and so also when Jupiter moves into Gemini, it's going to, just before that, it's going to be trining Pluto alongside a conjunction to Venus and the Sun. So Jupiter exactly conjuncts Venus on the 23rd, it conjuncts the Sun on the 24th, and also on the 24th, it sextiles Neptune in your fifth house. And then it's trining Pluto from the eighth house. All of that conjunction, Jupiter, Sun, and Venus conjunct are trining your Pluto in your fourth house. So really, really profound impact, something exciting, or, the potential is very positive around this could be something that you're receiving through an inheritance or through your marital partner. Jupiter for a woman, for example, is the spouse. But it can anyway be just benefits that your spouse is bringing to your life, some benefit from marriage, for example, because Venus is also in there, Venus ruling your seventh, so bringing that benefit from the seventh into the eighth. I would again need to see your chart to be really sure about that, but just saying could be a really wonderful opportunity for you in May. So especially the last week of May is really looking great, but basically all of May. April too, but April might just feel a little bit more like, what is going on? So yeah, go with the flow in April and figure out what's still left over in May, and then really enjoy May. In June, we have Saturn, which is stationing retrograde at 19 degrees. So in 2023, we have Saturn going from the 3rd till the 19th degree of your fifth house. And it's trining your first house. So this is wonderfully supportive for you, with Saturn all the way through Pisces until February 2026 is really supporting you, Scorpio. It's really bringing you a sense of something that you are stabilizing in your life. Saturn in the fifth can tend to have you feeling a little bit closed off to your own creativity or your own love, but that is really much more with a sense of what you're figuring out, especially with Pluto in the fourth, figuring out, what do I need? Is this serious? Is this really working for me? And so you've got a lot of activity in the seventh, now the activity in the fifth around love affairs, children. This may be that you have to put more time and effort into children that can come through that, or that you're deciding to have children. And then, let's face it, having children requires a lot of effort. So Saturn in the fifth would correspond to having children as well. It's not necessarily going to prevent you from having children, especially not a transit. That would have to be seen in the natal chart. I wouldn't suggest that that's something a transit can provide, either giving you or taking away children. Is not really easy to calculate based on just one transit. And so, but it can absolutely have to do with your creativity and all of the products of your creativity. So whether that be children or art or a business opportunity, an entrepreneurship opportunity, this is all very much related to that Saturn in the fifth. It will also stabilize your fifth house, where you may have been just a little bit overindulgent with that Neptune in the fifth house. With Neptune in the fifth house, you might find that you drift away a little bit into kind of like, the word debauchery came to mind, but okay, that's not for all of you, just maybe a few of you, or people and so, but in self-indulgence potentially, where there can be this tendency to kind of drift away, or it could be in a spiritual way. Neptune in the fifth can be very spiritual as well, but maybe not very realistic. And so, especially because it's in Pisces, and although it can bring a lot of spiritual energy there, Neptune in the fifth can also bring you into love affairs that are not necessarily what you think they are. The person or the experience is not exactly what you think it is. Now, with Saturn moving in there, that will be very clarifying, especially in 2025 and early 2026 when they conjoin. But already now, Saturn is kind of going, keep it real. Is this working? Is it worth the effort? Is there any effort behind it? Is it all puff and smoke and mirrors, or is it real? Does it have legs? And so you can really see over the next year, and certainly the next 2 years, where anything that you might find overly optimistic about your risk-taking or about love life or about anything to do with investing or gambling or those kinds of things, which are fifth house things, all of that can take a new shape for you. Fifth house is also sports and recreation. So when Saturn goes in there, you can become really committed to something. You can become a really committed athlete. You put a lot of the effort that is required into that. And to the point of success. And you can also turn a passion into a business when Saturn goes into the fifth. So again, I would need to see your chart to see what this is about for you. We have in August, we have Jupiter squaring Saturn. So Saturn, Jupiter will be in your eighth house and squaring Saturn in your fifth. And so whatever is going on in the fifth house, which, let's say, imagine that it's coming from an intimate relationship, is being squared by Jupiter in the eighth. And so there may be a sense of, things have been coming along too fast, or there's things that I'm not really sure about. And now as it's squaring Saturn in the fifth, there's a slowing down. There's a need to reassess, a need to reappraise and try to recognize why things are being blocked. It'll be temporary, but the block is there in August, the 19th of August. And the degree points are 17 to 18 degrees of Pisces to Gemini. Saturn is retrograde at that time. So it's a point of reflection, something that you're reflecting on from what's already happened. And so you can give, again, a couple of degrees on either side of that. And this will be in a trine to the fifth house and in an inconjunct to the eighth house or quincunx to the eighth house for Scorpio. And then that's happening again in December. The 24th of December, we get a square between Saturn and Jupiter. And that square is going to be at 14 degrees of Pisces and Gemini. So that's going to be, again, covering territory you already covered. So maybe once again, it's kind of like, did I see that right? Is that real? Is that a thing? And so that can be very, very helpful, very beneficial for you. But it can also feel frustrating because it can feel like, we were doing so well, everything was going fine. Whatever it is, the business, the couple, the creative project, whatever it was going so well. And now we got to figure this out because something's not working. It feels stuck. It's not permanent. It just requires extra focus. Just focus. Be clear what your ambitions and goals are. In September, on the 4th of September, we have Mars moving into Cancer in your ninth house. Now, this is a big story because Mars is going to remain in Cancer and Leo, the ninth and 10th house at the top of your chart, basically from September 4th all the way through till early June of 2025. So this is a long story. The ninth house is about your purpose. It's about your beliefs. It's about what you feel is important, your dharma, how you show up and serve the world and your life and your devotion. And the 10th house, of course, is your house of ambition and your drive and your sense of what you want to achieve, how you show up in your career, how you show up socially, what is your social status. And when Mars goes into the 10th, you feel really, really ambitious. And so this can be a time of real rapid growth. That's your ruler. Mars is very important for you, Scorpio. I do consider Mars to be your ruler rather than Pluto, but either way, you get to experiment with both of them because on the 3rd of November, Mars will be opposing Pluto. And that opposition is happening from your ninth house to your third house. And so there can be a sense of what it is that you need to commit to every day, or what it is that you have to do, the busyness, the communication, the feeling of what you need to experience in terms of your what is true, what is not true, how you communicate, all of that is going to be affected based on what you believe or what you recognize is important in the ninth house. Now, this is brief. It's 29 degrees, 45 minutes of Cancer and Capricorn. But this is a point that is really very strongly triggered, both in January, because Pluto is still at that point in January, but also basically September, October, and the first 3 weeks of November. Those are really key. That's a key degree point. And then when Mars comes along to trigger that, it can really show you something that was like, oh, that was the lesson. And so you might think you're kind of done, but then Mars comes along and says, okay, we're done. Now we're done. And that may or may not work for you. It really depends. Since it's your ruler, Mars, we really need to sit up and pay attention. So I can't tell you how that's going to shape up for you, but I can tell you that it's going to be super important for sure. We have an eclipse that's happening for the first time in the axis of Pisces and Virgo. And that's happening at 25 degrees of Pisces in your fifth house. So there'll be a moon there in Pisces and the sun in Virgo in your 11th house. So there's something here that is about this decision that you want. What is it that you want to create? What do you want out of your creative expression? What do you find fun? What do you need to let go and let your hair down? This is a very, I think, a beautiful house to have a moon in always. When the eclipse is now shifting into that place, you might start to feel like, you know what, I've done so much work over the last year and a half with the North Node in the sixth house that I really want to, I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to change. I need something to be different. I'm changing my goals. I'm changing my vision for the future. I'm changing the way that I want to participate in the world. And this will be the first glimpse into that. Because the nodal axis will change in January. It will move from your sixth house into your fifth house for the North Node, and from your 10th house, from your 12th house into your 11th house for the South Node. So you're definitely changing something in terms of what you thought your future would look like. Maybe more children for some of you, more children on the horizon, more desire for creating more babies of all kinds, projects, real ones, etc. Then we have a solar annular eclipse happening on the 2nd of October, and that's happening in Libra, in your 12th house again, and that's around the 10th degree of Libra. That is something that is conjoining Mercury. It's a South Node eclipse, and so there's something you're letting go of there. That again comes from something you become aware of with the Mercury in the 12th. You become aware of something. It's maybe a friend or an awareness of a relationship from either the past or from far away, or it can be something that you're recognizing is a mental pattern or a way of being that has caused you some disruption in your health. Again, that's that health axis coming in. Again, I would need to see your chart to see more details about how this would show up. And I do also have a video on the axis of Aries and Libra. You can find all of those videos linked below. And that will help you find out more information about how these things play out. They're still active all the way through 2024. What else have we got for you? I think that's really it, Scorpio. I think we've covered our most important territory here. That Mars retrograde is a big deal for you. Mars retrograde always is. It's your ruler. And so really we're looking at a very, very long period of time where your social status, your career, how you participate in the world and what you want, how you want to achieve, how you want to be seen to be achieving, it's all really, really prominent in your chart. And so we'll definitely keep on top of that for you as 2024 goes on, and step by step I'll be there with you. So good luck with all of that, Scorpio, and have a fabulous 2024.